Hitler built the most expensive wall in human history. $160 billion, 2,000 miles of concrete and steel. He called it impenetrable. The Allies ignored it, and won anyway. This is the story of history's most expensive mistake. By 1942, the war was turning against Germany. The Eastern Front was bleeding them dry. Stalingrad had just become a disaster. America had entered the war, and somewhere across the English Channel, the Allies were planning the largest invasion in human history. Hitler knew it was coming. He just didn't know when or where. So he made a decision. On March 23, 1942, he issued Führer Directive No. 40. The order was clear: fortify every inch of Europe's Atlantic coastline. Bunkers, artillery, tank traps, minefields. Turn the entire coast into a fortress that no army could ever breach. He called it the Atlantic Wall, and he wanted it finished by May 1943. On paper, it looked like the greatest defensive structure ever built. In reality, it would become the greatest waste of military resources in history. What Germany built between 1942 and 1944 was genuinely staggering in scale. 2,000 miles of fortifications, from the northern tip of Norway through Denmark, the Netherlands, Belgium, all the way down to the French-Spanish border on the Bay of Biscay. The numbers are almost impossible to comprehend. 17 million cubic meters of concrete were poured into the ground. To put that in perspective, that's the equivalent of 1,100 Yankee stadiums. 1.2 million tons of steel went into the wall, enough to build over 20,000 Tiger tanks. 15,000 heavy bunkers were planned, gun emplacements, observation posts, underground tunnels, coastal batteries capable of hitting ships miles offshore. 600,000 workers were involved. Only 10% of them were German. The rest were forced laborers, French civilians, Soviet prisoners, Polish workers. Men who had no choice but to build the wall that was meant to imprison them. The cost in today's money? $160 billion. And here's the dark financial secret nobody talks about. Those 600,000 workers, most of them were paid nothing. If Germany had paid fair wages to every worker, historians estimate the real cost would have been 3 to 4 times higher. So the true price of the Atlantic Wall? Closer to $500 billion, paid not just in money, but in human lives. And after all of that? By late 1943, only 8,000 structures had been completed, out of 15,000 planned. Half built, half ready. The Allies were already coming. In late 1943, Hitler sent Field Marshal Erwin Rommel to inspect the Atlantic Wall. Rommel was a legend, the Desert Fox, the man who had outmaneuvered the British across North Africa. He looked at the Atlantic Wall and was horrified. He called Hitler's defensive strategy Cloud Cuckoo Land. The most expensive fortification in history, and one of Germany's greatest generals, thought it was a fantasy. Rommel spent the first months of 1944 desperately trying to fix it. He installed millions of additional mines along the French coast alone. He flooded fields behind the beaches to slow Allied advances inland. He planted millions of wooden stakes to destroy Allied gliders during airborne landings. Soldiers called them Rommel's asparagus. He was essentially trying to finish a 2-year project in 6 months, working against the clock, against the weather, against his own high command. He almost pulled it off. Almost. But Rommel's construction work wasn't even the biggest problem. The biggest problem was the strategy. Germany's top generals completely disagreed on how to use the wall. Field Marshal von Rundstedt, commander of all German forces in the West, thought the Atlantic Wall was essentially useless. He wanted mobile armored divisions held back from the coast, ready to counterattack wherever the Allies landed, hit them while they were vulnerable, before they could establish a beachhead. Rommel disagreed completely. He believed the first 24 hours would decide everything. Germany had to stop the Allies on the beaches. Every hour they spent on shore was an hour they couldn't be defeated. He wanted the panzer divisions right behind the wall, ready to strike immediately. Hitler heard both arguments, and then did nothing. He kept the panzer reserves under his personal control, refusing to release them without his direct order. So Germany had two strategies and executed neither. Meanwhile, Allied intelligence had already found the weak spots. The strongest sections of the wall were around Pas de Calais, the shortest crossing point from England. That's exactly where Hitler expected the invasion. So the Allies went to Normandy instead. And the best German soldiers? They were dying on the Eastern Front. The men defending Normandy were undertrained, undermanned, many of them not even German. Conscripts from occupied territories who had no desire to die for Hitler. The most expensive wall in history was being guarded by Germany's least motivated troops. June 6, 1944. 5,000 ships crossed the English Channel. 160,000 Allied troops hit the beaches of Normandy. The Atlantic Wall met them. At Omaha Beach, it held. The bunkers were well positioned. The German defenders had clear lines of fire. American casualties were catastrophic. Hundreds of men died in the water before they even reached the sand. But here's the thing. The wall didn't need to hold at one beach. It needed to hold at all of them. At Utah Beach, American forces broke through with minimal casualties. At Gold, Juno, and Sword, British and Canadian forces pushed inland within hours. By the end of June 6th, the Allies had their beachhead. Hitler still hadn't released the panzer reserves. He was convinced it was a diversion, that the real invasion was still coming at Pas de Calais. He waited and waited. By the time he acted, it was too late. Within weeks, 2 million Allied troops were inside France. The Atlantic Wall had failed, not because the concrete was weak, not because the bunkers couldn't hold, but because no wall can stop an enemy who finds the door you forgot to lock. So, let's add up the bill. $160 billion in today's money. 17 million cubic meters of concrete. 1.2 million tons of steel. 600,000 workers, most of them slaves. 2 years of construction, and it lasted 1 day. With that same money and steel, Germany could have built over 20,000 additional Tiger tanks. They could have funded 2 more years of air superiority on the Eastern Front. They could have accelerated their jet aircraft program, the Me-262, which was already operational in 1944 and was faster than anything the Allies had. Any of those investments might have genuinely changed the outcome of the war. Instead, Germany poured its resources into concrete on a beach. Today, those bunkers are still there, slowly sinking into the sand at Normandy. Tourists take photos next to them every summer. They're not a monument to German engineering. They're a monument to what happens when a leader refuses to listen to his generals, refuses to make a decision, and bets everything on a wall instead of a strategy. $160 billion. History sent the bill. Germany couldn't pay it. Now here's what I want to know. If Hitler had spent that money differently, could Germany have changed the outcome of the war? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want more stories where history gets priced, subscribe to HistoryBilled. Every war has a price tag. This has been yours.